Travis Wayne Goodsell, Veterans Day. So I guess that means SWAT went and thought it was safe to do some episodes during coronavirus. They're going to be on tonight, so I'll watch it in the morning. I hear a lot about those who grow up in poor families whose parents struggle but are able to provide an education for the firstborn child to give them a better life than what they had growing up. And so those children hopefully are taking advantage of the opportunity that they are given that their parents didn't have, but yet they still struggle with the disadvantage over those who are filthy rich, whose parents give their children an inheritance, paying for all their schooling and whatever career field they go into, whether it's the family business or something else of their own choosing. And then there's my parents. My dad was involved in companies that paid him a lot of money, but they chose to have eventually 5 kids. And so at best they paid for my mission and the $2,000 for the first 3 months of rent that apparently they didn't have directly paid to the mission. I don't know why, but I got blamed. Because they were trying to pay for a jacuzzi that was right below my bedroom window and a swimming pool in the backyard, which was why they didn't want me to build my little mountain diorama. And they also paid for my associates at Rick's College. But that was it. No car, no extra money other than when I got married, which was only $300, or was it $200? And the $300 was what they invested after the savings and loan went bust. But regardless, I was understanding my situation, and I knew the forecast of economic doom that awaited me. But you can't just curl up in a fetal position and suck your thumb life away. So I just did what I did. I did bail on Leanne Murdoch because of curling up in the fetal position, not knowing how to take care of her and the family, which was a big mistake on my part. Probably the only thing I regret in life. However, it was difficult to explain to my parents why what they gave after turning 18 was still insufficient in today's economy. It was not enough of an investment for me to make it in this world. The economy is nowhere near what it was in my parents' generation, let alone my grandparents' generation, which was World War II and the Great Depression. So we got to go to the great-great-grandparents. And so when we read scriptures, parable of the talents, parable of the prodigal son, we make the mistake of imposing our economic understanding upon the Roman period economy that they're referring to. And as a result, we completely miss the intended interpretation and meaning of the parable as to how it is to be properly applied. Case in point, the parable of the talents. Here, the Lord gives 3 servants talents, which are not skills and ability. Oh, I can play the piano, that's my talent. Yeah, we're not talking about misunderstanding a definition. We're talking about money, and it's a large sum of money for back in those days. It's intended as an investment. He gives them talents. One he gives 1 talent, another he gives 3, another 5. And you'd think, oh, well, the one who got 1, well, that's nothing. There's nothing he can do with that. No, it's a lot of money still. And so the 5 and the 3, they go into the town and they invest it. And if you're going to assume that investing means putting it into a savings account and having it earn interest, then yes, you've misunderstood the parable and you do not understand. LDS Church, First Presidency, Nelson, Oaks, and Hiring. We'll get to that in a minute. And then the one said, oh, I'm too scared. I don't know if I can make a return on my investment, so I'm going to be safe and bury it in the ground, and therefore I won't lose it. And so the Lord comes back, and they all give him the talents. The 5 and the 3 had increased their amount, and the 1 preserved his 1. And he's the one who got cast into outer darkness for burying it in the ground, all because he was slothful and lazy, didn't do anything to try to make an investment and have a return on his investment. I mean, he got a lot of money. A talent is a lot of money. I don't know the equivalent in today's terms, but it's a lot of money. Do I dare spend time on Google search to see what a talent would be worth today? $1.4 million, $116.57. Wow. U.S. money. Wow. So yeah, it's a lot of money. Even though $1 million is not much anymore among the rich. It's petty cash. Oh, you're suffering? Oh, here's a couple billion to carry you through. But the church claims, with their first presidency statement way back when, in December, when the Ensign Peak Associates employee whistleblowed on the church, saying, hey, these guys are taking a 10% of the tithing income generated by the church and putting it here in Ensign Peak Associates, and to date they have about $100 billion saved up, and it's earning $7 billion. Wow. $7 billion every year. Plus they have an additional $40 billion portfolio, which Business Marketplace, which used to be Business Insider or Marketplace Insider, something like, they've changed but you can find it, Business Marketplace, LDS Church, 100 billion tithing, something like that. You'll have to turn off your pop-up blocker thing, as advertisers have swamped it now. But then you click on one of the links, and that takes you to the list of everything that the church has invested in. Whether they're still doing it, or whether they dump some of it during March's stock dump. Who knows? But yeah, that was what he had exposed. And the church presidency came out, along with the bishopric, saying, oh, we're doing this for a rainy day, save for a rainy day. Yeah, well, the coronavirus apparently isn't a rainy day in their definition, is it? So kind of, oops, they get exposed financially, and then we have a situation where they are needed by humanity to help them during a viral pandemic, but the church instead decides to help escalate the virus rather than give of their money to help people. Oh, but they have advertising on their newsroom, Travis, that says that their amount of charity has increased during coronavirus. Yeah, in 2016, Oakes was interviewed by the Deseret News, and he told them, yeah, we average about 40 million in charity per year. That was not the LDS charities, which again is not part of the church. The church does not put their money into it. That is only for donations from people around the world. And so Nelson gets up in April conference this year and says, oh yeah, we've given $2 billion from LDS charities. They're now using that to say we're no longer going to use the 40 million. You got to understand, 100 billion from tithing. They have multiple avenues of revenue that they've been investing in and making more money. 7 billion annually. So you need to understand, when you get the percentages of how much they're giving in charity, it's like, oh, here's a couple trillion to bail you out. And so, yeah, they're gaslighting you when they come out and say, oh yeah, 40 million, oh wow, the church is so generous. Oh, 2 billion? Oh, of other people's money? Oh, you're so generous. And you know, because this is what they say they do in the First Presidency Statement. We do this with every source of income. We invest. And so the 2 billion, they had more because they invested the more into one of their other dozens of investment companies. They don't let any one source know the full wealth of the church. They have an investment company for each and every single source of income, so that no one source knows the true financial wealth of the church. Like I said, it's multi-trillions. And so this is all a smokescreen that they're throwing up on you. And so if we were to apply this to the parable of the talents, they claim they're the 3 and the 5 who've been wisely investing in the city and produced more so that they can give it to Jesus Christ at his second coming. This is what they put in the First Presidency Statement. We're following the parable of the talents. What? Jesus wants money? Oh, wait, the parable says that when they gave it to the Lord then gave it back to them to say, keep on making more. Got it. You think that during his second coming, you're going to present him with all the money, and he's just going to give it right back to you. Great, keep on making more. Got it. But they don't claim to be the one who is burying it in the ground, because they're making an investment. $7 billion for just tithing alone. Interest off of their investment. And so, because it's not the same economy as the Romans, let's explain the Roman economy. If you're in a situation where you are given wealth as an investment, and we'll get to the parable of the prodigal son too. In this particular case, it's a lord who hires servants to do the investing for him. And so he gives them a certain amount of money. They then go into the town to invest. There are multiple ways of making money. It depends on what kind of a job you want to do. Whether it's food, clothing, shelter even, building homes. People have to pay for those products and services. And so the investment back in those days was so that if you wanted to be a farmer and sell food at the market to try to get a return on your investment, you have to buy land, you have to buy all of the tools and the seed and everything that's needed to plant, take care of, and harvest, and then take stuff, transportation, to the marketplace to sell it at the marketplace. And the concept is that the sale price at the marketplace needs to be such that when you sell everything that you've produced for that first year, you then are obtaining a profit, so that you end up with more money than what you invested in. And so it's not an interest thing from a bank. You see the difference? Church doesn't see the difference. And the banks currently are different than the way it was with the savings and loan. As It's a Wonderful Life helped illustrate to us, and have the mean old banks have now destroyed. But the equipment that you purchase, you can use those the next year. You can use some of the fruit or vegetables so that you have seed, so that you don't need to buy new seed. You already have seed, so you can even take some of that to plant for the next season. So yearly, you get to be the one who produces whatever crops you produce. And so you need to expend less money year after year until a plow breaks down or your wagon wheel comes off. And then those are other expenses that you have to pay for, which cuts into your profit. But hopefully the market is such that you're still able to make a profit every year, being able to factor in those yearly expenses. And so if you can do that, then yes, in the end, you'll be going back to your Lord and saying, hey, this is how much I made as profit this year. Great. Go back and do it again. Because in those situations, people need food. And they can't have their own food because maybe they're making shoes or clothing or building buildings or some other product that is necessary in society. You can't do everything for everybody. Monopolies are difficult until you become a slave owner. Then it's easy to be a monopoly. And so, yes, in this sense, the Lord is a slave owner. If he has enough money to have a different servant be a part of a different part of the economy, one for food, one for clothing, one for shelter, one for communication, one for transportation, etc., then yes, you can get a monopoly that way. Like Amazon, Walmart, exactly like them. But otherwise, if you're just a humble person who gets an inheritance from his father, which is the parable of the prodigal son, this is a situation where the father has established himself with his one business, and he has sons, and so they get an inheritance. He's able to take profit and store it away for his sons to give them an inheritance, so that they don't have nothing to try to make ends meet. And that's what we're experiencing in our day, is many of us turn 18, and if we hadn't been working as child slave labor, our parents aren't able to give us an inheritance either. And so we have to go deep into debt with student loans and credit limits in order to provide a living for us, as education becomes an investment instead. But we start off with a huge debt to have paid off. And so that's completely different than being given an inheritance or an investment to then try to make a better life. See, here we're automatically turned into slaves. When you are indebted, you are a slave. And our current system is a slave economy. It is not the previous illustrated systems of economy as spoken in the scriptures. So with the prodigal son, I probably should finish the talents to show you how the church is evil. You see, the one who only had one talent and buried it, and then said, here it is, I saved it. He didn't have an increase, and so that's why the church says we're different. The reason why you invest is because this is about saving lives for the afterlife. That's what all of these parables are about in the scriptures, is to help people understand through the modern systems on earth how the eternal system is supposed to work. And if you don't do anything to help your community, your society, the world you live in, you're worthless in the eternities. You've wasted your life. It doesn't matter if you have piano talents. If you don't give back to others to make their lives better and easier. This is what the Book of Mormon talks about in regards to the economy of Zion. You work for Zion. If you work for money, you're worthless scum. And it refers to priestcraft in that context. And so the concept of God's economy for the afterlife is that you're supposed to go around helping people be better people. Just like in an economy, you're supposed to provide products that help people's lives. You're not supposed to provide a a poor quality product because you know that people will have to buy more of your product because it's going to break down, wear down quicker, and need replacement or replacement parts. You're not supposed to scam people in order to make this money. That doesn't help with the afterlife. There other parables talk about how you don't give a stone to your son for a gift. You know, you're supposed to give a good gift. So other parables talk about that aspect of investing. And what the church fails to understand is that all they're doing is hoarding their money. They're burying it in the ground. But for some magical reason, our current system allows people to bury money in the ground and earn 7%. The church is not using that money to improve society or the world, because we're talking trillions of dollars that they're doing this with. All they're doing is earning interest through the system. Now, back with savings and loans, yes, that would be fine. You give the savings and loan money into a savings account and it earns interest, not 7%. We'd be lucky if we can get 3% during certain times. But the savings and loan would then loan the money you put into savings to somebody else who wants to invest in something, and they would pay back the money that they loaned, that they had taken out as a loan, with interest. And that would be the interest that you would receive on your savings. And that's why the interest rate goes up and down depending on the loans that are given out and the interest received. But the big bad bankers have destroyed that system, and so my parents took out my money and put it through the investment of the priest quorum advisor who was involved in that company. And so yeah, I had $300 when I got married. You know, they finally, my parents told me about it. Oh yeah, we put your money into this investment company. Oh, I had money? Oh yeah, that's right. I did put money into the savings and loan thing, and I did have that one little bank book. Whatever happened to that? Oh, it went out of business. So we invested it in this investment company of the priest quorum advisor. It's $300. And so you can keep it in there and let it continue to gain interest. And for that, you're investing into other companies so that they get money, and you would think that they would help benefit society, but instead what it's doing is going to the board and the CEOs, the COs, paychecks. They don't trickle it down. They still produce poor quality products so that they can maximize profit margins. And they pay their employees slave wages so that the employees can't say, hey, I've got enough money now, I'm going to go and invest in my own business. No, they don't want you to do that. So they purposely pay you as little as possible to make sure that they keep you. And so that if you dare leave them, they then have you sign non-disclosure agreements that you can't work for a similar company for a number of years because you have trade secrets that you might pass on to this other company to make them better than your company, and all this other crap. Again, monopolies. And so I think I can go to the parable of the prodigal son now. And so the prodigal son, this is a parent, coming full circle with the beginning talking about parents. The parent is wealthy. You know, he did well in his life and has inheritances for his two sons. The firstborn birthright blessing son was given his inheritance, and he went into the city and he spent it in orgies and drinking and drugs and all that fun stuff. And so it's gone. And he still has the rest of his life to live because he didn't get STDs, didn't get liver cancer or liver disease or overdose. He survived. And so he has the rest of his life to live now, but he has nothing, and was even wallowing in the mire with the pigs because of his condition. And he was financially ruined. And so he goes back to his father, and his father is wealthy. And so yes, he can kill the fatted calf and all this for his son, and he will take care of his son on his farm or whatever it is that he did for a living for the rest of his life, because he's his son. That's what you do. You know, the son wasted his inheritance, and so now he's a loser. No girl will want to marry him, as he's living with his parents for the rest of his life. It's a different situation today, women. Be nice to us. Be merciful. And so the younger son, he's upset. Hey, he wasted his inheritance, and you're giving him a place to stay here, and you're making him a fancy meal? And of course the church did an appropriate video to cover that side of it in a modern context, with the son being jealous and how that's evil. But there's more to that than the church is wanting you to know. As the church is wanting you to think that, oh, it's okay to lose your eternal existence, like we have, by stealing your money and wanting to establish polygamy again. But the concept with the younger son is the father was trying to tell him, I'm not giving your older brother your inheritance. You still get yours. If you choose to stay on the farm and help me with that's fine. But if when you turn 18, you decide to go into the city and do something else with your life, that's okay too. You still get your inheritance. That's what the son was worried about. And in the eternal concept, that's what Mormons are not understanding. Parents, other Mormons, are not understanding. They get furious that other people get to have orgies, get to do drugs and drink and all this fun stuff. And they have to work hard by studying their scriptures, praying, hoping the Spirit will eventually communicate with them to give them knowledge so that they don't have to do actual study and research through that process in Alma 32, starting in verse 28. And they don't understand why this other person gets such a cushy life. I have to go to church week after week. I have to go to the temple. I have to do this and do that. It's not fair. He better not go to exaltation. Travis is criticizing the church. How is he going to be exalted? That's not fair. I don't criticize the church. I'm loyal with your crimes and your corruption. It's not fair. Yeah, so that's what the parable of the prodigal son is actually trying to teach through the lessons of earthly life, is that don't worry about other people's eternity. Figure out your eternity. You've been given an inheritance of a body that can listen to the Spirit, Alma 32, starting verse 28, so that you have an equal opportunity to hear the word of the Lord. And so if you're not hearing him, as not a single one of the prophets who did the Hear Him videos are hearing him, because if they have to come up with different ways of hearing him, this is how I hear him, this is how I hear him. We all hear him randomly and arbitrarily. And it's all the same source. Seriously? Get out of here. Quit gaslighting us. There is only one way to hear him. They should have told you that. There was not a need for every single one of them to tell you how they hear him. And I didn't bother to hear them about how they hear him, but I got a pretty good idea that it had nothing to do with the process of praying to hear the Spirit and then acting on it. Because what they should have been doing with that is bearing testimony of how the process works, not gaslighting you into getting you to already reaffirm what you've misunderstood with Moroni chapter 10, 4, and 5. But again, who are you going to listen to? I'm on 10 now, right? Yeah. And so as much as it would be awesome if financially we had a system like that, and yes, Zion is supposed to be a system like that, where you don't get paid, but you get everything that you need and want for your living and for whatever you do to contribute back to Zion. That is the system that is already mentioned in Scripture for us. And if you're going to assume that the church is true and that you're going to wait for them to create the Zion economy as multi-trillionaires who only do it by burying their trillion in the ground, which magically produces 7%. What happened there? You're never going to have a Zion society through the church. They have no interest of having an exodus, going east to restore Zion. It's here. This is where they're going to stay until destruction. They have no interest or desire to leave. This is Zion for them. They have their multi-trillions, they have their temple square, they have the system set up around the world, they're embracing authoritarian countries, doing deals with them, and so yeah, they have no desire to fulfill biblical prophecy. And so you, as members, as saints, you'll never have the Zion talked about in Scriptures that you're longing for, that you're hoping for, that you're waiting for Nelson to give the announcement for. He's not going to do it. It's never going to happen with this church. And so they'll continue to give minimal amounts of charity, depending on who gives donations. as they take 10% of those donations and invest it in themselves. That's how their system works. And if you're going to stick with them, saying, oh, they're the true church, okay, but they're not following the God examples in the book, in the scriptures. And so are you sure you believe incorrectly? Sure you want to. You're just gaslighting yourself from reality, refusing to see things as they are. And so, there you go. But yeah, there is no need for a monetary system. Zion is simple enough as it is. If you have a product that needs to be mass produced, then yeah, you'll be given the automated machinery that's necessary for mass production. You'll be the one in charge of it because you were the one who came up with that item that you're producing for the rest of Zion. And with the need, then yes, you'll be given whatever is needed to make sure that the storehouses and everybody is supplied with that item that is needed. There's no need to worry about monopolies anymore. There's no need to worry about copyrights anymore, because that's all part of a monetary system. You know, we share. We don't hold back and extort for money. Wouldn't that be nice? Imagine there's no country. Wonder if you could. All you need is love. Shot in the back. Very sad. Independence Day.